Hello, welcome to 15 Minutes of Consulting Best Practices. My name is Maria Isabel Rios, and as you can see today, David continues to be on vacation in Argentina. So hopefully they're having a great time, and we can't wait to hear all about it when they come back. Welcome everyone. For those of you who know the drill, start typing your comments. They take a minute to come in, or your questions for today. For those of you who are new, we take your questions live, and hopefully we answer them in a way that it's tactical, that it's practical. We also go over questions that you have submitted ahead of time. So let's jump right in. Deidre, if you can, please show us the first question for today. All right. Thank you, Mike, for submitting your question. A prospective client surprisingly canceled a meeting without offering a reason. What should I do? Mike, sorry to hear that happen. Unfortunately, it seems to happen quite often. It turns out the meeting was not a priority. So first suggestion is don't take it personally. Most likely this has nothing to do with you and it's not about you. Another suggestion is reach out immediately and suggest rescheduling. Your rapid response will confirm to your prospect that you're still interested in speaking with them, that you want to know what happened, where's their mind at. Of course, offering chocolate, it's optional, and it usually entices people to come back in and have a conversation with you. Start a sequence if you don't hear back from your immediate follow-on of 4 more follow-ups, all independent from each other. And you're basically looking in those 4 follow-ups to get a date on the calendar. So these typically look like very simple emails akin to our 111 emails where you have one line, one subject, one question, easy to read, easy to answer. If you have an assistant, which we hope you do, enroll your assistant in going through the next round of trying to pin down a date for a meeting. The objective is that both of you have closure and that you don't leave each other hanging. It always makes it difficult for folks who then are thinking, oh, let me come back and reach out to Mike again. If in their mind, they didn't say good by you in your last exchange, that will be a barrier. So you want to leave those communication channels open, and you want to understand what happened without judgment, right? Most likely you'll hear that the meeting or the project was not a priority, either permanently was demoted, which is hopefully not the case, or it was not a priority for that week. So get in motion, get back into communication, and start exchanging and trying to get them on the calendar. All right, Deidre, I think we're ready for another question. This question is from Matt. Thank you, Matt. Do you have any tips on handing a client a VC-backed startup that stops responding to emails and calls when the final invoice arrives? Matt, sorry you're in this situation. It sounds from your message like your project has ended because you're no longer in communication with client and all you have is that one outstanding invoice. This is one of the many reasons why we advocate that invoices are not tied to project milestones, all deliverables. And we strongly suggest that going forward, you do that. Meaning your payment cycle, it's completely separate from what you're doing in the project, when you're doing it, and your end date for the project. Now you're stuck with an unpaid invoice. Folks are not responding. So before I give you some suggestions, let me say, this is not legal advice. It's not financial advice. Please don't take it like that. Take it more of as a suggestion from a peer, right? So we don't want to be legally or financially responsible for what you're going to do. Part of this friendly suggestion is that if you have the contact information of those in charge of finance and of those in the VC that back your client, your startup client, you think very strategically about how and when to use that. So if you haven't done so, I would send one more letter, more formal in tone, where you attach your agreement, you attach kind of previous payments, and you say, look, this payment has been outstanding for X period of time. You're not replying to my questions. Once that happens, then you can escalate it. If your client contact was not the CFO and not the CEO, then perhaps your next communication includes the CEO, includes the CFO, and you create a sense of urgency around getting paid. Eventually, you can escalate and include a VC. We hope you don't get to that point. There's a balance in understanding how recoverable that amount that it's outstanding for you will be, and how, in practical terms, will you get paid, and when will you get paid, and the likelihood that you will. So look also for information. Have they stopped paying everyone? Are they looking to go out of business? And if so, you adjust your timeline accordingly and the tone of your conversations accordingly. In the middle of all of this, and just because I'm suggesting escalating, I'm not suggesting you become confrontational in tone. So in the middle of all of this, preserve your relationship as much as you can, right? You're speaking with a human being who's also in a tough position. Acknowledge that. Do not take on their financial problems, but acknowledge that they're probably facing tough choices, including the reason why they haven't paid you. And in that sense, try to remain as human as you can in this very uncomfortable situation, both with the folks who were your contact at the company and also the folks at the VC. Right. Hope that's helpful. Drop me a note once you've gone through this. See if you can get some traction. I would love to know. Deidre, can you please pose your next question? Thank you. All right. Can you give me an example of what an agreement for a retainer project would look like? And this question is from Jen. Thank you, Jen. All right. Agreement for a retainer. This is an interesting question, and we get a lot of them. Before I jump in and answer, thank you, Eric. I see your comment. You're saying startups, due to lack of formalized procurement or perhaps more liquidity, tend to be less likely to pay on time. Exactly. Yeah, and I'm with you, Eric, with a frowny face. It's not fun. Agreed. So, Eric, if you have tips, and thank you for offering a one-on-one chat, I'm sure folks will love to hear them. I appreciate your insight here. All right, Deidre, can you take us back to the previous question that I haven't answered? Thank you. That one. Thank you. Can you give me an example of what an engagement for a retainer project would look like? All right, that was the original question for Jen, which we took a detour before answering. All right, so Jen, we call retainer agreements, in the way you're explaining them, stipends, because we want to make the distinction that these are fees that you receive periodically and not a per hour, month-to-month agreement. So hopefully you're more in the category of a stipend arrangement with your client than a more traditional retainer where you're billing on an hourly basis or they can cancel at any time. In any case, especially in the case of a stipend, first step is to clearly define the role that you're playing. And here it's important to think both of what your role is or will be and what it is not. So, good opportunity to clarify to what extent are you involved in your client's day-to-day or in the team that you're supporting day-to-day? What are the expectations? I'm guessing in terms of deliverables, you will have little to none, given the way you frame the question. But if there is an expectation on deliverables, outline that one as well, right? And what it isn't. So if you're not taking on day-to-day responsibility, put that into your agreement. Keep it simple in terms that anybody will read and understand and say, yes, this is exactly what we agree. Also define for you what your responsiveness standards are, as well as other relevant conditions of how you're going to deliver it. When will you be available? What is the expectation your client can have in terms of how quickly you respond and to whom, and who are you available to on a one-to-one basis or in a one-to-many basis. Another element to include in your agreement is that it is a fixed fee. So be comfortable with the risk you're taking, that some months, perhaps the intensity of your supports will be higher and some others will be lower. And be comfortable with that risk and have your client be comfortable as well. Also set a time frame for your agreement. For example, say 6 months, and then set out a payment schedule. So if it is very different to say, look, you're going to pay me for a month ahead, hopefully not a month after, right? But a month ahead on the first day of the month, than to say we have a 6 months agreement, payment of 2 months is on day one upon signature of agreement, and then I'll bill you, the equivalent an XP for 4 consecutive invoices, and you get paid over 6 months, right? So set out a payment schedule that it's very clear. And also allow yourself for negotiations of months, say 7 plus, in the example I just gave, starting 2 months ahead of when your agreement ends. So it would look something like this. You would sign an agreement now for providing kind of stipend with a stipend for 6 months. And in month 4, you start looking at, okay, this agreement is going to end in 60 days. What do we want to do? Do we renew under the same terms? Do we adjust? Do we recalibrate? And you start working with your client well ahead of the end of your term. Right, Jen? Hopefully that's helpful. If you need any more information, write and we'll send you more data. John, you have a question. Thank you for submitting. You say, I mentioned the 111 email format. Do you describe that on your website? So look into our blogs, davidaffields.com/blogs, and look for a 111 email. You have information there. We also have covered it, I believe, in several of our LinkedIn Lives and provide additional information. So we can look for it, give you a reference, or you can browse back. It's basically a very simple type of email. One subject, one line, one question. Those are the 3 ones. The subject is the person you're speaking with. It's them, not you, John, in this case, but them. The one line is just that. Keep it as short, as sweet as possible. And the one question is a question that you're going to ask that it's relevant to the person that it's receiving the email. Very specific, right? So if you're reaching out every 3 months to somebody that was in the middle of a turnaround with their company, you would ask, have you reached the second stage of turnaround yet? For example, very personal to them, very simple. It's usually enough to get you in conversation and to get you where you need to be in terms of your team. All right. You're welcome. Glad that was helpful. All right. So with that, we've reached the 14-minute mark. So a few things before we let you go, and thank you for joining me on this Thanksgiving week in the US. The first one is, if you want to see us live every Monday, and we hope you do, create a recurring calendar event and paste the link that Deidre is showing right on the screen at davidaffields.com/Monday Live. Every week, it will take you to our live meeting. It updates automatically. You'll be able to see the replay of today's live during this week. And by Monday, you'll come to the next one. All right. Connect with me. Connect with David. If you haven't already, we tremendously appreciate that. Also, if you haven't subscribed to David's articles, please do so. And again, the link is right in the bottom, davidafields.com/subscribe. You're in for a treat. And lastly, send us your questions. This is what makes it fun and engaging and interesting, is that these questions that we're answering are actually yours. I'll get you the link, John. I'll find it for you and I'll update it. In the meantime, and until we see you next week, those of you in the US, have a fantastic Thanksgiving week. Enjoy good food, enjoy the warmth of family and friends, and some rest, hopefully. And for everybody else, remember that consulting, it's all about our clients. So be kind, be generous, and be supportive of them. Thank you very much. See you next week.